everybody's organs look essentially the same, but like different.
That's why I love anatomy so much, because everybody has the same things, but everybody's insides are just so different.
Yeah.
And you don't know by just looking at somebody.
Nope. And I've said this before too. I'm so sad I'll never get to see my own autopsy. I want to know what I look like inside.
I want to be a ghost in the morgue.
I want to haunt the morgue and watch it and critique who's ever doing my autopsy. I'm like, oh, you're using a bone saw?
I wouldn't have done that.
I would have used clippers. Just kidding. I won't judge you if you do my autopsy one day, I promise.
She probably will.
Maybe. Maybe. My ghost is going to have a ghost podcast about how poorly you did my autopsy. Red flag for everything.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to perform an autopsy?
Ever wanted to know how accurate your favorite crime drama is?
If you're brave enough,
join us inside the morgue.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Inside the Morgue. We're your hosts and investigating duos, Jess and Alice. The show we watched today was a listener suggestion over on our Instagram, so if you have any shows or like specific episodes that you would like to hear us cover, please DM us. Leave us a comment on Instagram or YouTube. We'll make it happen. Please. We love to hear from you guys.
We'll watch terrible stuff for you.
Yeah.
I do it anyway.
Anything for the content.
Anything.
That being said, we watched the new Dexter series, Dexter Original Sin. This is the pilot episode, so we'll be getting into blood spatter, of course, angels of death, and potassium nitrate. And before we get started, obviously, this is a huge spoiler warning for Dexter Original Sin, but also it's also a huge spoiler for Dexter New Blood, which came out in 2021.
Yeah, this picks up kind of where it leaves off. So if you're not aware of where it leaves off and you're a Dexter fan and want to find out, watch Dexter New Blood first before listening to this episode. But still like, comment, subscribe, and come back later.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to our producer, Dylan, here at YUNKJunk. Dylan, where can the good people find you if they want to do a podcast?
You can find me just out and about, but also by emailing me. If you have a podcast or want to start one, hit me up and I'd love to make it with you.
We just found Dylan. We went out on the street and just yelled, Dylan! And
he came out from an alley.
It worked.
Yeah, and now we're here.
Yeah.
So you should try it.
You can do it.
Yeah. But if you can't project as loudly as we can, shoot him an email.
Yeah. Might be easier.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
So this is the spoiler warning for Dexter New Blood. Dexter's being brought to the hospital after being shot. This is present day Dexter. This whole Dexter Original Sin, like him, he's seeing his life flash before his eyes. But he is resuscitated at the hospital, which, that was the huge spoiler.
I didn't watch New Blood, so like, don't come at me.
Jess
I'm like committing myself now to become a huge Dexter fan and like watch it from the very beginning.
This is the second episode of Dexter you've ever watched.
Yeah.
You watched the pilot. I think that was episode 4 that we did. We did the pilot of Dexter.
I have tried like multiple times, I kid you not, to get into Dexter. It's just too slow for me. So I really need to push through it, I think.
See, that fascinates me that it's too slow for you. Because it's about a serial killer hunting serial killers.
You think I would love it.
I'm like, that's... Did you watch it? Did you try to watch it before or after you got into forensics?
It might have been before. So I think I have to give it like a genuine another shot.
See, because I thought you'd like it. Like, I've been afraid to revisit it because I haven't watched it since working in forensics. So I'm nervous I'm going to watch it and nitpick everything like I have an entire podcast about doing. And I'm scared because it's one of my favorite shows. And I'm just, we watched the first episode and I even said on that episode, I'm like, I'm so scared because they got like so many things wrong. He called like the subclavian artery, the carotid artery, and the shoulder or the brachial artery, one of them. Really, and I'm like, oh, Dexter, no, you're pre-med. You're supposed to be pre-med. You should know that. But
that's why I think I would like it now, like after working in forensics for so long, like I could laugh about it and be like, oh, these silly producers.
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix now.
I think you're right.
This was on Paramount Plus. Dexter Original Sin's on Paramount Plus if that's where you want to watch it. And I forget where New Blood is. I want to say Showtime. It's
HBO
all over.
probably.
HBO, yeah. So in these moments of Dexter being resuscitated, he's being worked on, his life is flashing before his eyes. So we flash back to young Dexter, played by Patrick Gibson, and he's in his undergrad, he's pre-med, and he's working on his first cadaver. And he's doing a Y incision and using the bone saw to cut open the rib cage and take it off. And he takes out the heart. And we've probably addressed this before. We personally do not use bone saws to take off. I mean, we use bone saws, but not to take off the ribs. We use clippers.
One of our interns had asked me that the other day. They're like, why don't you use a bone saw? And I was like, because we try to minimize how much bone dust is being aerosolized.
Yeah.
So we're not like breathing it in.
Mm-hmm.
It's also just easier to use the clippers.
Yeah. Once you get the hang of it, it's easier. That always throws people off, though, when they're watching their first autopsy and they see us pull out those.
Mm-hmm.
They get a little freaked out, and I don't blame them. But yeah, I think either or is a fine way to go about it. It's just not how we do it. So the cadaver overall in this scene, we think looks pretty good. It's an embalmed cadaver because it's in a medical school, or not medical school, pre-med. And it has like a grayish color, which is what you'd expect in an embalmed cadaver. When I worked in a cadaver lab, that's what they all looked like.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before. I was shocked when I saw my first like fresh dead body, how colorful the internal organs are. Because I'd only seen like the very muted gray tones of somebody who had been embalmed with no blood left in them anymore. It's wild. So the heart could have looked a little better, but I feel like it's hard to perfect that in
They made it look almost
way.
too perfect. And like, not every heart is like a perfect little heart.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like bigger and like kind of floppy.
Yeah. Everybody's organs look essentially the same, but like different.
That's why I love anatomy so much, because everybody has the same things, but everybody's insides are just so different.
Yeah.
And you don't know by just looking at somebody.
Nope. And I've said this before too. I'm so sad I'll never get to see my own autopsy. I want to know what I look like inside. I want to haunt the morgue and watch it and critique who's ever doing my autopsy. I'm like, oh, you're using a bone saw to cut my ribs?
Done that.
I would have used clippers. Just kidding. I won't judge you if you do my autopsy one day, I promise.
She probably will.
Maybe. Maybe.
Dylan's laughing in the background. He knows.
My ghost is going to have a ghost podcast about how poorly you did my autopsy. Red flag for everything.
I think we should give a green flag for like how the embalmed body looked, though.
I think we should too. It was pretty solid. And yeah, so there's an embalmed cadaver, so there's no blood. And we all know Dexter has a problem with this because he is obsessed with blood. And I also wanted to talk about this scene because the rest of the class is like observing him do the dissection. And he like he's also full PPE.
Which is great. We love to see it.
Love that. But he like puts his hand on the cadaver's chest and is like quiet for a minute. And like somebody in the class is like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, I'm experiencing death for the first time. I'm taking a moment.
I got secondhand embarrassment for watching that.
Yeah. And I had a moment where I'm watching that and I'm cringing and I'm like, is this what I sound like to people? Is this what they hear?
You sound so profound and you just sound
I
so
haven't
cringy.
I same since I was 16. I've always thought I've been so profound and it's just so cringy. But like, and everybody looks at him like he's crazy. And I'm like, people look at me when I talk about my job like that because I love my job. And I'm like, oh God, is this what people think of me? Do they think I'm Dexter?
Yeah.
I'm not though.
I have such a passion for forensics, but I feel like people assume like I'm just weirdly into it.
It's what everybody assumes I'm weirdly into it. And we've talked about it before. I have met some people who are like
weirdly into it.
Yeah, there's either people who are, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work at the coroner's office. Oh, that's interesting. I don't like that. Let's not talk about it anymore. And other people who are like, oh my God, tell me everything. And then there's people who are like a little too into it and they ask like really specific, awkward questions. And I'm like,
I don't feel comfortable answering this.
I don't know why you want to know all of these details, and I'm a little uncomfortable talking to you right now.
I'm concerned for you. Should I call someone?
Yeah, I'm just having a drink at the bar. Why are you asking me about my trauma? Please leave.
I don't feel like trauma dumping on a Thursday night.
No, unless it's for a podcast. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so I totally had a moment where I'm like, is this what I sound like to outsiders? And I hope it's not, and I'm sorry if it has been. If you've talked to me and you're like, yeah, you came off that way, I apologize. I was talking to my uncle recently who doesn't get what I do, but he asked about work and I was like, oh yeah, it's been great. I get to do this and I still get to do autopsies and I'm helping with investigations. And he's like, you get to do that. So you like doing it. And I'm like, yeah, I love it. And he's like, why couldn't you have a normal job? And I'm like, I don't know.
But like, I always think of it, I'm a hit at family parties. Everybody wants to talk about what I do.
It's true. Everybody's always asking me about work and genuinely wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes like my dad, he's so supportive. My dad is so supportive. He's always said, he's like, I'm so happy you're happy and you found your passion. I don't want to hear about it. Like, I don't want to hear about the nitty gritty details. My mom does. But
My dad wants to know about everything.
Yeah. No. There's always, yeah. I've accidentally made my brother like leave the dinner table because maybe I am like Dexter because somebody asked me a simple question over dinner.
I'm going on a tangent.
Somebody said, they're like, wow, your forearms looked really toned. And I'm like, oh, it's from like peeling scalps. And my brother's like, my brother literally like pushed away. He's like, I'm leaving. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Oh crap. I'm sorry to everyone who knows me. I'm working through some stuff in this episode.
We're working through our trauma. We listen and we don't judge.
You see that new trend? We listen and we don't judge.
All right, back to the episode. So Dexter is a pre-med student. He's thinking about going to med school, but he didn't feel anything when he was cutting this cadaver. So this is like his slippery slope, and we all know how this continues. So then we cut to a crime scene where Patrick Dempsey plays a detective, Sarah Michelle Gellar also plays a cop, and Christian Slater also plays a cop,
yes.
who is Henry Morgan, who is Dexter's dad.
Harry Morgan.
Harry Morgan.
Maybe it is a nickname for Henry. I don't know.
This is an all-star cast.
It really is. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. She's like the head of the forensic department.
Mm-hmm.
We love a boss forensic babe. Like
I love her. I love Christian Slater. I've loved him since Heathers.
I was just gonna ask, is it because he's JD in Heathers? Yeah,
Heathers is my all-time favorite movie from the 80s. Can't change my mind.
He's a little psycho in that one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's the serial killer in that one.
Maybe this is where my whole thing started.
We're really working through some stuff in this episode, and I love it.
I'm realizing a lot. So at the crime scene, there's a whole family dead, and they're trying to piece together what happened. So we give a green flag for them photographing the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the one guy's name who's photographing it.
Oh my God, Manuzzo?
I think so.
Was he have the funny laugh? He's like, yeah, Manuzzo.
Yeah.
He's one of the main characters, or like one of the like central characters in the OG series.
Mm-hmm. I liked his camera. He had an external flash and I think a ring light, which is like really cool to see.
Oh, we love a ring light. Can we talk about ring lights? Yeah,
always.
So we use ring lights so the ring light goes like around the lens of the camera to really light up. I don't even know.
It just gives more light into the picture.
Yeah.
So there's no extra shadows.
So sometimes we've had to get like photographs inside of a mouth for certain
if it's
wounds.
like an intraoral gunshot wound, and those are really hard pictures to get.
They're so hard to like work with the shadows of that, and a ring light is peak lighting for that kind of photo. Yeah, we love a ring light.
And so Christian Slater, we said, is Dexter's dad, which is fun because he and Dexter have this plan that Dexter is going to become a surgeon, and that's going to fulfill his urge of killing people.
So do you, as somebody who's not watched all of Dexter, do you know, like, Dexter's dad knows he's a serial killer?
I didn't know that until watching this, and I was like, oh my God, is this like a huge thing that people don't know and are finding out for the first time?
So the whole thing with Dexter is he's known since he was young, and like you find out in season 1 why he became the way he is. It's so good. But
I'm gonna go home and watch like the binge the whole first season.
Please do. So yeah, he finds out he's the way that he is, but like growing up, he has like the McDonald triad. Like he's killing animals, he is like no emotion, and like Henry, who has been a homicide detective for a while, is like, oh my God, picks up on these things, and he's like, I know what you're doing and what you are, and we need to just find a way to direct this so that you don't harm innocent people. Mm-hmm. And so he starts with hunting animals. He's like, maybe this will be enough. and it's not. So then he's like, oh, maybe you can go to med school and be a surgeon and like you'll see blood that way and that'll be enough.
It's not.
And so that's when he's the one who gives him the idea is like only kill bad people, like only kill other killers. And that's Dexter's whole thing. Yeah.
So there's like this college job fair type thing happening, and Dexter finds a forensics booth there, and that kind of piques his interest in blood spatter analysis.
And it's Manuzzo.
Yes, it is.
I'm pretty sure. I know his first name's Vincent, but they always call him by his last name, and I'm pretty sure it's Manuzzo. And he's a funny guy. He makes a gross comment at a girl walking by.
He's trying to like hit on girls, and he's like, Dexter, you're cock blocking me.
Yeah, and that's that character. That's that character's whole thing in the OG series. He's just making gross, weird comments the entire time. And I'm like, why are you here, dude? Like, why are you doing this?
Be less annoying.
Be less gross, please.
So then a few scenes later, Dexter and his dad are on a hunting trip, and his dad collapses from a heart attack. He suffered a non-ST elevated myocardial infarction. So basically, myocardial infarction means he had a heart attack.
And this is right after Dexter is telling him, Dad, I don't think killing animals is enough anymore. Right. I want to kill people. And he had just been at a party with Deb, his sister, if anybody doesn't know. And some guy had gotten his sister very, very drunk and was trying to take advantage of her. And Dexter fought this guy and went to reach for a knife to like kill him. He was about to kill him, but then Deb pulled him off and stopped him. And so he's confessing all of this to his dad. He's like, Dad, I wanted to kill this guy.
And his dad just drops.
And his dad's like, oh, that's okay. And heart attack right then and there.
He's like the classic like heart attack symptoms. Like he's holding his left arm.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least classic that I've seen on TV. I've thankfully not good one.
I've never seen one.
I've never witnessed
real life.
IRL.
So it seems like the nurse that is taking care of him is an angel of death. And so that just means like, I don't know if anybody has never heard of an angel of death. It's somebody in the medical field, like nurse practitioners, nurses in general.
Sometimes doctors.
They get this like thrill of killing their patients.
They like... I was reading a little bit about it.
They're doing something good.
Yeah. This one in particular justifies it by like she's ending their suffering. Some people, there's a case we're going to talk about a little later. It's similar to a Munchausen by proxy type thing where they'll bring them to almost dying and then resuscitate them, but sometimes they go too far and they actually end up killing them. It's not great.
Yeah. So Dexter finds a binder full of obituaries of all of the patients that this nurse had killed. She had been injecting them with potassium nitrate, and his father is next on her list. She's already started like a few kind of rounds of injecting him.
Yeah,
and he's been just like finally noticing it.
Yeah, Dexter's been noticing like he's been in the hospital and he should be improving, but he's been slowly declining, and the same nurse has been taking care of him. And there's a scene of him walking into the hospital to go visit Harry, and he walks by this same nurse comforting a grieving family whose loved one had just died, and he sees like a look on her face, and he recognizes that look because he's also a serial killer. So he's just not well, technically he's not a serial killer yet because he hasn't killed anybody, but he's an aspiring serial killer. So he recognizes the look, and I think he tells Harry what this nurse is doing, and Harry's like, oh my God, you can like see it in other people. And he's like, yeah. And that's, I think, when Harry gets the idea, like, okay, you
need to kill her.
You can kill people if you know that they're killers.
Right.
Yeah.
So he like realizes that potassium nitrate is going to become a huge thing. And like, it's hard to detect on a tox report too.
Yeah, we get into that later. It is hard to detect on a tox report. It's hard for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But Dexter brings like a sample of whatever the nurse was injecting him with to his chemistry lab. He's like an all-star student, so the chemistry lab professor's like, yeah, use whatever you want.
And he finds that it is potassium nitrate that she's injecting people with.
And he asked the doctor, like, would this amount kill somebody? And he's like, no, not acutely, but like over time, if administered, yeah it would. So Dexter tells his dad what's going on and that they need to stop the nurse from giving him another injection. And ultimately, he tells Dexter to stop the nurse for good. He basically gives his blessing, like, Get rid of her.
Weird to think about. I gave you my blessing to go kill her.
You need to watch Dexter. That's the whole thing is like Dexter's like he lives by a code is what he calls it. It's Harry's code. And like Harry gives him a set of, I'm sure we're going to see it throughout the rest of the series. But because I'm definitely watching the rest of the series.
I'm definitely going to keep watching this series.
Definitely watching. I'm so intrigued to see how that goes. Like you watch Original Sin first and then go watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
I'm so intrigued.
Okay. I have to finish this. Yeah.
If you want to. I want to, just for an experiment, I want to see how that is. I want to see like my experience watching it with knowing everything versus your experience watching it not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. So Dexter runs with this. He's just been waiting for the word that he can kill someone. And he finally fulfills the urges that he has. So cue his classic plastic wrap and tarps. And there was a really funny scene. So this is a classic Dexter thing. This is his MO. He like comes to a place where the killer feels comfortable, or he'll kidnap them and take them to like a warehouse somewhere and everything's covered in plastic.
Yeah, but I do know that. But
he's like doing it really bad at first. And so the voiceover, it's still Dexter, because in the OG series it's Michael C. Hall is narrating it as well as mainly acting in it, so he's still narrating it. It's still Michael C. Hall, and he's like, hey, give me a break, I was new, because he's like not able to get it up everywhere. And it was cute. I liked it. I shouldn't say that this is cute. I shouldn't say that's cute.
I didn't notice that.
Ignore me. I'm digging myself in a hole this episode, but it was funny.
Working through it.
So he does his classic thing. He knocks out the nurse. So I feel bad I'm spoiling it for you now. In the series, he injects them with a sedative to knock them out. Usually he'll sneak up on them, inject them with sedative, bring them somewhere, wrap them up like he does. But this one, he just like hits her over the head with something because he's new. So he wraps her up in the tarp, tells her he knows what she is. He's reading through her obituaries that she saved from her past patients, and she's like, I'm helping them.
Right, like she's like on the table and he's over on the couch like reading the book to her.
Yeah. And he does the same thing that he did to the cadaver. He puts the hand over the heart, but this time he feels a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this is the first time I felt fear. And I'm like, ugh. And then he stabs her. He stabs her a lot.
And he enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he cleans her up, puts her in the back of a truck, and feeds her to some alligators. He takes her to a swamp where there's apparently, it's like known that there's a ton of alligators there, because he tells Harry about it later, and Harry's like, oh, you took her to Alligator Alley? And I'm like, that's a thing?
Right?
Classic.
They're
in Florida.
To dispose of a body.
They are in Florida. And he kept her earrings as a trophy, even though he later says he knows this was a mistake. So I'm guessing that's going to come back later in the series, that he might almost get caught. But we know he doesn't get caught.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe almost.
It's the thrill. They got to like add some suspension to it.
So on his way home, he sees all these cop cars outside, and he thinks he's like been caught already. But it's just his dad's cop friends coming by to bring food because they know Harry's in the hospital, and Dexter and his sister Deb need help while he's still in the hospital. And he sees the same guy from the job fair, creepy Vincent Menuzzo, whose name I might be getting wrong, but I hope I'm getting right. And Dexter was able to point out similarity in blood spatter patterns on the...
Like at the job fair, they had like a bunch of pictures up. That's
crazy.
So they would put crime scene pictures up.
Yeah, that's just striking me now. We would never, like, we've gone to college, like job fairs before, to like promote our office.
We bring like we have like a skeleton that's been unidentified since 2009. We bring him, just like very basic things. We have like an autopsy dummy.
Yeah, we don't bring anything.
We don't show
have crime scene
pictures. They were really advertising the fact that Dexter is going to become a blood spatter analysis. Like start it now.
Yeah. But he was able to point out similarities in the photos and connect the cases. And because of this and how talented of a student he is, they offer him a paid internship with the forensics department. And Sarah Michelle Gellar herself offers him the internship.
Boss ass bitch.
And when Sarah Michelle Gellar offers you a job, you take it. So Harry is finally better, and they're able to bring him home. And at home, he talks to Dexter about killing the nurse and how he got rid of her. He's making sure nobody saw him. He's making sure he disposed of the body where he won't get caught. And this was so sad. Like, Dexter leaves thinking like the conversation went fine.
And his dad just starts sobbing.
It's like,
His dad like came to realization like oh my God. Is my son.
My son is a serial killer, or going to be. They end the episode with Harry returning to work and Dexter going with him to start his internship.
And his dad's like, I don't approve of this. Dexter's like, I know, but this is my passion.
Why wasn't that Harry's first thought into like, oh, my son's obsessed with violence? Like, why was it surgery that he tried to push him to and not forensics? Like,
I think because he was like, Dexter loves blood. So like, there's a lot of blood that happens in surgery. Yeah. So like that would...
Yeah.
I guess in his mind as a dad, he's thinking, try to save a life.
That's it. Yeah. That's probably it. But another thing we wanted to talk about, this is a show, finally, where somebody has a passion to be a forensics person or work in the forensics field. And he's a freaking serial killer.
It's
like all these shows, it's always people who wanted to be
Why
like,
can't they be normal?
I mean, he technically was trying to be a surgeon first, but he didn't like it. There's like every other show we watch, it's like, oh, they loved being a surgeon and they had a great career, and then something terrible happened, so they had to work in forensics. And now it's finally, we get some representation of somebody who's like, yeah, I love this job.
And they're a freaking killer.
Because I'm a serial killer. And I'm like, man, damn it.
Honestly, when I used to work at the Whole Body Donation Center, like me and the other lab tech there, like we worked together for over a year, and we would always say like, oh, we're basically dismembering people for science. Like, we have serial killer vibes.
Oh no.
I'm working through things.
I'm working through things. Yeah. Yeah. And then I get why people think like, this is why people look at me weird when I say I love my job, because they think like, I love it like this.
You love it a little too much.
Yeah. Before, I told you this today, when I first started watching Dexter, I was texting a friend who had recommended it to me. He knew I would love it. And I told him, it was before I worked anywhere near forensics, and I texted him, I was like, I think I want to do something like what Dexter does. And then I followed it up with not killing.
The not killing
part. And he's like, oh, okay. the cool part. Like the cool, like crime solving part. And like the forensics and all that fun stuff. And he's like, yeah, that's fun. He was an engineer, and he's like, I don't get this. I don't get
different spectrum.
Different kind of nerd. I don't get it.
So we talked about like potassium nitrate and how that was the angel of death, the nurse, her method of killing her patients. So kind of going more into what potassium nitrate is, it's a medication used to cauterize small wounds, remove granulation tissues, warts, verrucae, and it's used to treat tooth sensitivity. So,
can I say something about the word verrucae? I only know how to say verruca because in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp, that one.
Yeah, the best one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes,
I got
the best one.
I got hate on Cult Pop for that.
JD Noel, if you're watching this, it's the best one.
We did a ranking of like the Tim Burton movies, and I kept voting for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and JD was getting so mad.
I watched it.
And Noel hates it too, but he voted for it just to make JD mad, and it made it to the top 2. It was the best. We did like a bracket.
Get the hate comments going.
Yeah, rage bait. But in that, Veruca Salt introduces herself. She's trying to suck up to him, and he's like, Veruca, isn't that a wart on the bottom of your foot? And I'm like, so I know it's verrucae. Anyway,
I'm gonna remember that forever now.
Tangent aside, back to it.
So potassium nitrates are ignitable fumigants, also utilized as rodenticides and insecticides. Very big words for me.
They are. It's a lot.
They're added to other pesticides, active ingredients like sulfur and carbon, and they're placed into fumigant gas cartridges designed to be ignited and placed in pest-infested areas.
So is that like basically a bug bomb? Like, you know,
that's what I'm thinking.
That's what I'm thinking it is. Yeah.
The activated cartridge bombs also release toxic gases, which are lethal to select rodents, skunks, coyotes, and wasps. And rather than directly poisoning rodents, nitrates support the combustion of charcoal in gas cartridges, promoting the production of toxic gases, which are lethal to the target pest. The Environmental Protection Agency in the USA, the EPA, is only minimally concerned about the risk of direct human exposure. Just a little bit.
A little worried.
to sodium or potassium nitrates rather than pesticide accidents, typically involving skin burns or inhalation of toxic gases.
So the primary acute toxic effect of nitrates is the development of methemoglobin, which is a condition in which greater than 10% of the hemoglobin in your body is transfused into methemoglobin. So when this conversion exceeds 70%, this can result in death. So hemoglobin is the thing in your blood that carries oxygen where it needs to go, which is everywhere. Methemoglobin is unable to bind with oxygen, which is no good. We need oxygen to live. So if too much of your hemoglobin is converted into methemoglobin, it's bad news. So when this conversion exceeds 70%, it results in death. Adverse increased potassium intake included change in blood lipids, triglycerides, decreased high density lipoproteins, so HDL. That's the good cholesterol. Changes in renal function, which are your kidney function, and increases in catecholamine levels. So the decrease in blood volume caused by the increase in potassium activates the sympathetic nervous system, resulting in a release of adrenaline. So your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. You have two nervous systems. You have more. Simplifying it. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. Parasympathetic, that's your rest and digest. So when you're chilling out, parasympathetic nervous system. When you're either exercising or you're in a really high stress situation and you're in fight or flight, that's your sympathetic. So decreases in blood volume may also contribute to the observed changes in blood lipid concentrations when exposed to this.
So in postmortem talks, you can test for potential potassium nitrate poisoning by analyzing blood or urine or other fluids for elevated nitrate levels using ion chromatography. So however, nitrate levels can also fluctuate due to natural postmortem changes in the body, and potassium nitrate will also cause blood to become like a chocolate colored kind of
another
thing
food
happening.
Food
Everything in forensics can just go back to food related things.
I feel like it's just because it's like people can picture it immediately.
People can relate to it more and be like, oh, I know exactly what that will look like.
Yeah.
It's also like in the old forensics textbooks and like anatomy textbooks, like everything was so much more hands-on. Like everybody was in there feeling everything, and
nobody wore gloves.
They would relate it to food related items to teach
like the
other
texture
students
of it even.
Like nutmeg, liver.
When I first started doing autopsies, I always had the hardest time finding the pancreas because it's so hard to see.
It's covered in fat.
It's covered in a lot. It's attached to the stomach, behind the intestines, and it looks like fat. It's very similar to but
it has a harder texture.
It feels different. So you literally have to know what you're feeling for. And like, it's all by feel. It's crazy. And like, the
feeling for the adrenals.
Yeah. The same thing. You can't see them underneath so the adrenal glands are the glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they make cortisol. And you can't see them because like your kidneys are like encased in like a little fat sack kind of.
They're a bright orange color.
Yes, but they're a bright orange color when you do like cut into them, but like you can feel them before you cut them because you have to like feel around in that little fat sack.
They feel like thicker and like denser than the fat that is surrounding them.
Yeah. How many people do you think have tuned out?
I don't know. I'm just talking about what I love.
How many people do you think have like just unsubscribed from this? Like,
no, we'll get them back. We'll get them back.
Come back. We're going to talk about chocolate.
We're so cool. We have a really cool true crime coming up. Don't leave. We need the views.
We just both got so into that conversation. And I just started this episode like, I'm not weird like Dexter, but I love feeling around for adrenal glands.
Anatomy.
But also, speaking of chocolate colored like blood, just a fun film fact in Psycho, starring Anthony Perkins, the famous shower scene where the blood going down the drain, it's a black and white film, was chocolate syrup.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Famous shot of all the blood.
I'm gonna have to go rewatch that scene.
It's chocolate syrup.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Special effects there.
Yeah.
Potassium nitrate in the blood will become a chocolate colored substance. And it can also cause the lips and skin to appear blue due to that methemoglobin. So hemoglobin, which we said carries the oxygen to your blood, and methemoglobin is unable to carry that oxygen, like Alice so wonderfully explained.
So that's why it turns blue. There's no oxygen.
However, this is really hard to test for post-mortem because post-mortem changes can occur in the body, and it can cause blood to oxidize, causing an inaccurate reading of post-mortem versus antemortem methemoglobin levels. Typo there. Yeah. So like on the tox report, like it won't even like come up as anything.
Yeah, it's
because your body just like changes all of it.
It's hard to tell like the post-mortem versus antemortem levels, and I think like because everything oxidizes, it like converts back. It seems like
the
it's
body
really tough
is really
to
a crazy thing.
Yeah. And I think even the chocolate colored blood was seen in patients who had been exposed but like they weren't dead. So they like took their blood to see what was wrong with them, and they compared it to like regular blood. They're like, this looks a lot darker and a lot thicker. Yeah. There's something wrong with this blood, and then they were able to
save them.
We can save them. Yeah. So we have an interesting true case that pertains back to the episode of the Angel of Death that Dexter hunted for his first kill. So Richard Angelo is an American serial killer who worked in West Islip, Long Island, New York, and was convicted of murdering several of his patients as a nurse and sentenced to 50 years to life in 1989. So he was born on August 29th, 1962. His mother was an economics teacher and his father was a high school guidance counselor. He graduated from St. John Baptist Diocesan High School in 1980, and then he entered a 2-year nursing program at Farmingdale State College. In October 1987, he came to public attention when it was suspected that he had poisoned one of his patients at Good Samaritan Medical Center. So his patient, Girolamo Kuchik, he was injected with something by Richard Angelo and then suddenly didn't feel very well. And so he paged another nurse to come see what was wrong. And it was found out that he had been injected with pancuronium, which is a muscle relaxant, and he was administered to this man through IV, which it should not have been. And Angelo was then arrested for the assault of this 73-year-old patient.
After his arrest, Angelo confessed to poisoning other patients with either the pancuronium or succinylmethonium chloride, if I'm saying that right, both of which
chemistry words are hard.
It's like the hardest thing I've ever had to pronounce.
I can read them like to myself and spell them, but then when you ask me to say it out loud, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't read. I can't read.
Both of these are paralytic agents used in anesthesia, and after this confession, 30 patients' bodies had to be exhumed for further postmortem examination and toxicology testing.
30 exhumations.
Serial killer vibes.
That's insane. Yeah.
So Angelo was suspected of poisoning at least 35 people at the hospital while working there for 7 months. Only 7 months.
Yep.
And he killed at least 35.
Yep.
Poisoned at least 35.
He was suspected of.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So through the medical examiner, they were unable to conclusively attribute the deaths to those injections. He claimed he did do this to be a hero by causing his patients to go into cardiac arrest and then being the one to save them in like the front lines there in front of his colleagues.
Yeah, he was trying to look like the hero, and yeah, that's awful.
Get that moment of glory.
Yeah, it's sick. So his trial lasted 8 weeks, where 32 witnesses testified and 100 exhibits of exhibits. Oh my God, why can't I say this?
Exhibits.
Evidence, I keep saying it weird. Exhibits were entered into evidence. And on December 14th, 1989, he was found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree manslaughter, 1 count of criminally negligent homicide, 2 counts of first-degree assault, and 3 counts of second-degree assault. He received 2 not guilty verdicts for other cases. And on January 14th, 1990, a Suffolk County judge sentenced Angelo to 61 and a half years to life, but the maximum sentence by New York state law is 50 years to life, so that's what he is currently serving. And he will be eligible for parole in 2049, at which time he'll be 87 years old.
That's insane.
Isn't that wild?
That's so many charges against him.
Yeah. So many different charges, but he confessed to so many more. They just couldn't get enough evidence to try him on it.
God.
And
like sicko.
It's when you look up like Angels of Death, there's other
There
examples.
are so many true
It's
crime
crazy.
stories of Angels of
Yeah.
Death. A lot more more gruesome than others.
Yeah. It's wild.
Oh my gosh.
Did
So-
we count red flags?
I don't think
Did we have
I
any red
had
flags?
any red flags. I think that him loving forensics but being a serial killer is like a pseudo red flag.
It's a pseudo red flag. We're just personally
I'm personally offended by him. I think that we counted 2 green flags
Yeah.
for the embalmed body and for photographing the scene
So this episode did better
than
than
of the original Dexter.
because I don't think the original passed in
It
our
did
terms.
not.
It did not.
It did so poorly.
Jess was like, I was not impressed by your favorite show, Alice,
But now I'm gonna go back and rewatch it
and judge me even harder.
So yeah, this episode of Dexter, or I was gonna say New Blood. This is Original Sin.
Mhm.
Dexter Original Sin has 2 green flags and 0
Zero
red
red
flags. So I think that it passes in terms of forensic
We'll give it a
accuracy.
pass.
I think that we're definitely gonna have to keep watching this series and maybe do more episodes of it down the line.
Mhm. Yes, thank you, Tony, for suggesting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love more suggestions. If anybody has them, please let us know.
We love to hear from you guys, even
Yeah.
if you don't have a suggestion and you just want to comment something nice.
Yeah, and if you're just a Dexter fan in general,
Yeah, we want to hear all
we
about
want
it.
to hear all about it. We want to hear what you thought of this one, Original Sin, New Blood, if you watched it, and what's your favorite season of Dexter? Mine's 4. Season 4 is so good. Season
Mine's
4 and
this
season
one.
2. What?
Mine's this one.
Yours is what I'm watching right now.
So thanks for listening to this episode of Inside the Morgue. If you want to hear more, follow us on Spotify, listen to us on Apple, over on YouTube with YUNKJunk. Hit us up on Instagram, DM us with anything you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And yeah, feel free to give us listener suggestions, and we'll be back next time with a brand new dissection. Bye.
YUNKJunk!